All right, this is going to be super interesting. Adam Mockler, who has a YouTube channel, recently went out in Iowa at the failed Trump rally. Remember the one that got canceled either because of weather or because not enough people showed up? Trump was scheduled to speak, and Adam spoke to Trump supporters. And this is really, really, really good stuff, but it is very scary. The topic of attitudes towards trans people came up significantly. Conspiracy theories and conspiratorial thinking came up significantly. So let's just get right into it. Adam does a really good job here. This is Adam Mockler, who you can find at youtube.com/@Adam Mockler. Let's just jump in and brace yourselves, okay? This may not be appropriate for children, and I think I should say.
Banging hookers, right? What % of Americans do you think are transgender?
I would say before it was cool to be transgender, or before it was probably like, I would say 1.5, and now it's probably like 20%.
Okay. This is something we see when anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists are asked, how many Jews do you think there are? And very often they'll say, in the world, they'll say, oh, it's like 5% of the population, or it's 10%, 20%, 30%. And then you go, actually, it's 0.2% of the global population is Jewish. One of the things that's common is folks who see groups as problematic will dramatically overstate their prevalence in the population. The Islamophobic folks will often say, oh, I don't know, like 10% of the U.S. must be Muslim or something like that. Really common thing.
20%, well, it's still 0.5%.
Oh, okay. I was pretty close on 1.5.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. If an adult goes to the doctor with gender dysphoria and they try to decide on a treatment, do you think the government should be able to step in and stop that?
Oh, no, not if they're paying for it. As long as, they have their own insurance that they're paying for. I don't think a state, health insurance should have to pay for your gender reassignment.
So you're okay with people getting gender affirming care, though?
Oh, yeah, as long as I'm not paying for it.
Now, this sounds sort of open-minded, right? I mean, okay, but what's interesting about it is this whole thing of, am I paying for it? He says as long as state insurance isn't paying for it. Well, one of the realities is the way insurance works, everybody pays in based on what actuaries believe is expected to be the total amount of spending that's going to be done on procedures and services of different kinds. In a sense, even with private insurance, if gender affirming care is covered, everybody who's part of that risk pool is in a sense paying for it. Now, I know this guy doesn't understand that. He's not thinking of that. And he says that it's not the procedures I have a problem with, it's who's paying for it. But the reality is that it's a little more complicated than just as long as I'm not paying for it. If insurance covers it at all, then it's being paid for in shared responsibility by everyone participating in that risk pool. But, okay, it's at least he's open-minded in saying it shouldn't be illegal. All right, let's continue. Then Adam speaks to a woman who says the country is more divided than ever, and then immediately brings up the Biden crime family, which isn't a thing, with absolutely no understanding that part of the reason the country's divided is because people like her are saying things like Biden crime family. She also says cannabis causes mental issues. Let's listen.
Now than it was when Martin Luther King marched when I was a kid. Blame? Let's talk blame.
Yeah, let's talk blame. What's up?
Have you ever heard any Democrat say that it was their responsibility or they did this?
Sure,
or they did? Have you looked at the records, the actual information that we found about Biden and his crime family?
We've found about the Biden crime family.
They would eliminate so many of the drugs, I believe, that children are able to get a hold of nowadays. There would be far fewer mental issues.
What kind of drugs?
Pot, for one.
You disagree with smoking?
You best your sweet Bippy. I grew up with kids that when it was just coming in, and I saw them make complete idiots of themselves.
Now, on cannabis, it's not a lie to say marijuana can have negative effects for some people on mental health, depending on the person, the amount, the frequency of use, the type of marijuana product. In some people, cannabis causes anxiety or paranoia. There are instances of temporary psychosis that can be caused by cannabis in very, very high doses. The truth is that all these things are very rare, and we have lots of legal products like alcohol that are arguably far worse, but they actually are really morally concerned. That you have to understand this. If you show, my guess is, if you showed this woman the data on alcohol and cannabis, and you said, hey, look at alcohol, there's a moral connotation that folks like her have when it comes to cannabis, and that's a big part of this. Let's continue now. I'm sort of skipping around. Now we go. Oh, this is really wild. Okay, let's just jump into this one, then we'll talk about it.
That transgender has just been publicized, just like other issues that they try to distract us from when it's more of a mental health issue.
Okay,
Well, if it's a mental health.
The argument here is we've been distracted by trans. Trans really is just a mental health issue. Okay, well, let's explore that.
Issue, then wouldn't it follow that treatment would improve these people's quality of life?
Yeah.
So you're for gender affirming care?
No.
Trans is a mental issue. Okay, so then we should provide the treatments that reduce the mental issues, right? Yeah. Oh, like gender affirming care. No, not that.
There's tons of studies that people who receive gender affirming care have a way better quality of life than people who don't.
Are you just seeing it from the one side, or are you seeing both sides of it?
Now, that's an interesting question, right? Randomized controlled trials, peer-reviewed, show this. But her question is, which side are you getting that from? Well, it's what the science shows.
Well, tell me your side.
No, I'm just saying, have you seen the research on just the one side, or are you seeing it from both sides?
That's such a critical thing here, right? The idea that it's all just opinions. Okay, yeah, research, but it's like one person's opinion research and another person's opinion research, as opposed to we have a scientific foundation for how we can evaluate what is to be believed that is separated from our opinions about it. Very difficult for lots of these folks to understand that idea. It's all sort of an opinion, isn't it?
Opposite of gender affirming care, I guess, would be conversion therapy. And there's 0 studies showing that conversion therapy works. Actually, that increases the suicide rate of trans people.
Right.
I don't know the statistics on it.
Now she doesn't know. And this is a very common retreat. You go forward and you assert. You then have pushback, which is, well, here's the data. I don't really know the data. Let's move on.
That. I'm just going by, my own thoughts of,
What makes you think Trump will be able to beat Biden in 2024 when he already lost to him in 2020?
well, he didn't lose to him in 2020.
You don't think so?
No, it
There
was
you go.
completely rigged. Biden is just a puppet anyway. It's not-
Now, this is where it gets really crazy. I dare you to follow this. So far she's asserted Trump won and Biden's a puppet. But who's the puppeteer? Get ready to, I hope people like pretzels, because this is a completely, a total logic pretzel.
the real guy.
Who's controlling him?
The white hats.
The white hats?
The white hats.
Can you define who those people are?
That would be our military, our generals, and our current and sitting president of Trump. He's our commander-in-chief still.
You think Trump is still a sitting president?
Yes.
You think Trump is currently making all the decisions in the country?
Yes.
So would you blame the current inflation on Trump?
Yes, because this is where we would have been.
All right, at least she's consistent. She's saying, listen, Trump's the president and everything that's going on can be blamed on Trump. Okay, at least that's some level of consistency.
I'm not blaming him, but in order
Oh.
for everybody to actually start waking up and seeing what was going to come down the pipeline if Hillary would have gotten in and they would have been able to do their new world order, this is what we were going to get.
And the border crisis, that's also on Trump?
Have you been to the border?
No, have you?
No. So how do we actually know if the wall was actually done, how are they getting in?
So this is where we go into something that unfortunately happens often when folks like this are questioned about their beliefs. They go to how do we know? They become almost metaphysical. They become philosophers of epistemology. How do we know anything? What is the nature of reality? They become Deepak Chopra all of a sudden.
Is it really a crisis, or is it just crisis actors?
I don't think there's a crisis at the border, honestly.
I don't think so either.
You think people are at the border acting like immigrants?
Correct.
Wow.
What's the purpose of this?
To wake more people up.
To what?
to seeing we would be going socialists in a communist country.
So now it's just a word salad. Now it's coming out of her like a projectile vomit. Socialist, communist, crisis actor. This is barely English. It's just words. I recognize the words, but it's not making any sense.
That's not what America's about.
Okay, that's really serious. And what I want people to think about is, okay, it's funny, it's entertaining, okay. That could be, they talk about teachers left in Dawson. That could be someone, I don't know what job this woman has, if any. That could be someone's teacher. That could be, I guess she could be your accountant, right? As unhinged as she is, she might be able to hold it together and be a CPA. I don't know. But there's tens of millions of these folks. Now we go to another guy who goes into election conspiracies. Let me get past his introduction. Here's a guy he has his own series of, January 6th conspiracy.
To get the Democrats and all the deep state out, we need to take back the country for the people.
Yeah.
Peacefully, no violence.
No violence. So you disagree with what happened on January 6th?
It was not an insurrection. We were set up.
By who?
Democrats and the deep state. Antifa was there, FBI was...
You don't think there's a part of individual responsibility to do with it, though? So, if you make the decision to walk into the Capitol, break glass, and to riot, don't you think it might be justified to be charged with something?
Yes. If you break the law, of course, there's consequences to breaking the law. Now, you get a group of people, I don't care who it is, it could be Christians, whatever. You get someone or a couple people in there that are instigators, they're going to get the whole crowd to go.
Even Christians, I love that. Even Christians might be able to either convince or be convinced in this sort of mob mentality. But, these are sort of like, it's this projectile vomit. Who did the setting up on January 6th? Well, he mentions FBI, Antifa, Democrats, I think he said. They all, I guess, work together or separately with the same goal. It was extraordinarily organized. It makes no sense, but it doesn't matter.
It takes one flame to get the can of gas to burn.
Yes.
Now, there was people there, yes, that should not have done what they did. The destruction should not have happened. If you get caught on it, prosecute you.
All right. So now we're going to go to another woman who says the election was stolen.
Because the election was stolen.
You think so?
I do.
How come every time they brought it to the courts, all the evidence was rejected immediately?
Because the courts are rigged.
A lot of those judges were appointed by Trump, though.
They still have a lot of undercurrent things that are going on.
There's a lot of undercurrent things that are going on. It's simple. How does Adam not understand it?
It should not be going on.
So you think Trump appointed over 60 judges that were part of the swamp?
Maybe.
Doesn't that reflect poorly on Trump's judgment?
No.
Why not?
Because look at all these people that were wearing masks.
Yeah.
Was they fooled too?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, I think that they were.
What is she talking about? I've talked about this before. These are endless special pleadings, right? I've given the example before. Hey, you know what, guys? Right here in the studio with me, there's an invisible tiger. It's here, you just can't see it. So I say, oh, okay, well, it's invisible, but it still has mass, right? So let's put baby powder on the floor. So even though we can't see the tiger, when it walks around, it'll move the baby powder and we'll prove that it's here. No, it's an invisible, weightless tiger. Okay, well, so how about this? It needs to eat, right? Let's put some beautiful steaks down for the tiger. And then even if we can't see the tiger, and even if the tiger doesn't have any mass and isn't going to disturb the baby powder, we'll see the food move. It's going to need the food. No, it's an invisible, weightless tiger that also doesn't eat. And then you go further and further and further, and it doesn't matter. Now, the look on this woman's face, you see she sort of is starting to realize she seems kind of like a moron. Not all of them have that recognition necessarily. All right, last guy here. This guy says there should be no trans people. Now, how you get to that, I don't know. I don't know what he means. There should be. Well, who's going to get rid of them? I don't know. But they get into an interesting discussion, actually, about gender identity that almost goes in an interesting direction. Take a listen.
That we're humanistic.
Yeah, I think there should be no transgenders. I'm pretty sure there's only 2 different genders that are born, and that gives 2 different types of sex.
So he's pretty sure there are only 2 types of genders that are born, and that gives you 2 types of sex. Mixing genitalia with gender expression, admits he's only pretty sure. This is what we're dealing with. And listen, he gets to vote, and good for him, right? I'm not suggesting restrictions on voting. We just have to understand these folks vote. And if we don't vote, these are the sorts of ideas that end up being reflected in the leaders that we choose.
But even with there being 2 genders, that can still fit under the transgender worldview because you're just switching from generally masculine features to feminine features.
A woman has female reproductive organs, and a male has male reproductive organs, and that's about it.
Do you look at people's genitals when you're figuring out whether to call them sir or ma'am?
Sir, please show me what you have there.
Or do you generally look at a vague set of social characteristics?
You can, just by walking around, you can tell by the way their voice is. You can just what's more about your morals, what's morally right in this world.
So you can look at people and know if they're transgender based off their morals?
This is funny, but it's very sad. It's very sad and it's very scary. You know, the world looks at this, and we have a lot of international viewers. Every time we do this, people write to me. They say, David, what has happened to the United States? Is it an education issue? Is it a cultural issue? This is crazy.
A person knows if they're men or women, and that they know their morals and know if it's right. And
I totally agree.
To be honest is a big thing. We're all about honesty in this country. So if they know
I didn't know. Not from looking at the last presidency. I could have fooled me.
they're a woman, generally you'll know if they're a woman just by the way they walk, the way they're.
This sounds pro-trans to me, though. So you're saying if somebody knows they're a woman and they walk around with features that are looking like a woman, then they can be considered a woman?
No, a woman. We already went over what a woman and a male
He doesn't want to go over it again.
is, and I think we agreed on that.
So there it is. Really, really good job there by Adam Mockler, and we'll link to Adam's channel. This is good stuff because he's going a little deeper than you sometimes see people go. And one of the things I've told you sometimes happens in political discussions is folks can go 1 talking point deep or maybe 2, and then it all falls apart. And then it's just words come out that they heard Trump say, but they don't make sentences that we can identify in any reasonable sense. Really scary. It is funny. It is funny, but it's scary and sad more than anything else. If you've been getting crushed in the markets lately, like many people have, you were probably happy to hear that Treasury yields have been surging. Right now, you can get a 5% yield on Treasury bills, which is higher than most high-yield savings accounts I've seen. And unlike a high-yield savings account, Treasury bills are a fixed rate asset, so you know what you're getting at the time of purchase, but buying U.S. Treasuries can be very complicated, or at least it was, because our sponsor, Public.com, lets you buy Treasury bills in seconds right from your phone and put your cash to work. Keep in mind that Treasury bills are government-backed securities considered one of the safest investments around. When you buy them on Public, they are securely stored at the Bank of New York Mellon, the world's largest custodian bank and security services company. Plus, there are no minimum hold periods or settlement delays. You can access funds anytime. If you keep it invested, Public will automatically roll over your investments at maturity, so you have one thing you don't have to think about. Go to public.com/Pacman to start getting that 5% yield on your cash. The link is down below.